The sun hung low, painting the Texas sky in fiery streaks of orange and gold, but I wasn't here to admire the view. My boots crunched on the gravel as I stood frozen, staring at the monstrosity before me, a towering metal fence, glinting like a predator's teeth, wrapped tight around my 40-acre ranch. My ranch. My blood, sweat, and dreams poured into every inch of this land. And now, a smug little sign dangled from the locked gate, mocking me, *private HOA property. No trespassing, * my name's Jesse Ray, and this wasn't just a fence, it was a declaration of war. I rattled the gate, hard. It didn't budge, the padlock gleaming with defiance. I'd only been gone 2 days, visiting my mama in Houston to make sure she was steady after her surgery. 2 days, and the Pinebrook Meadows HOA, the vultures who'd been circling my land for months, decided to cage me out. No warning, no explanation, just a shiny new wall and a gate I couldn't open. But here's the kicker, the part that'll make you choke on your sweet tea. I didn't scream, I didn't call a lawyer, and I sure didn't beg. I went out and bought the tiny patch of land the gate sat on. That's right, the only piece holding their precious key. And what happened next? Oh, you're not ready for it. But let me take you back to how this all began, to the moment I realized I wasn't just fighting a fence, I was fighting for everything I'd ever built. I'm 43, a retired firefighter who spent decades running into flames to save strangers. Every scar on my hands, every ache in my bones, was earned pulling people from wrecks or carrying kids out of burning houses. When I finally saved enough to buy this ranch outside Austin, it wasn't just land, it was my peace. 40 acres of rolling hills, peach trees, and horses that greeted me with soft nickers every morning. I'd wake to the sound of birds, not sirens, and for the first year, life was damn near perfect. No neighbors, no noise, just the kind of quiet that makes your soul breathe deep. Then the HOA showed up. Not on my land, mind you, my ranch was free and clear, no neighborhood strings attached. But some hotshot developer decided to plop a fancy housing estate, Pinebrook Meadows, right next door. Cookie-cutter mansions with manicured lawns and people who thought rustic was a setting on their coffee machines. Their HOA started sending letters, official-looking nonsense about how my barn's red paint clashed with community standards, or how my tractor was an eyesore. I laughed them off. My land wasn't part of their little club, and I had the deeds to prove it. But they didn't stop. Next came the visits. A guy named Donald Snipe, all slick back hair and a name badge pinned to his polo, knocked on my door one day. "We're creating a unified aesthetic," he said, grinning like a used car salesman. "Your ranch is visible from our homes. It's not quite fitting the vision." I offered him a shovel and some fresh horse manure to match his attitude. He didn't come back, but the HOA wasn't done. Soon, I noticed surveyor flags popping up near my fence line, then strangers with clipboards snapping photos of my property. One mumbled something about boundary reevaluation before scurrying off. I had my land surveyed when I bought it, everything was legal, clean as a whistle, but I could smell trouble brewing. I drove to the county clerk's office to double-check my records. An old man behind the desk, with a face like weathered leather, leaned in close. "Son, if an HOA's got their eyes on you, they'll try anything. Watch your back." His words stuck with me, heavy like a storm cloud. I didn't know then how right he was. 2 days later, I headed to Houston to check on Mama. She was tough as nails, but surgery had slowed her down, and I wasn't about to let her fend for herself. I stayed 2 nights, made sure her fridge was stocked, and drove back to the ranch. That's when I saw it, the fence. A silver beast, heavy steel mesh, wrapping my entire property like a noose. No heads up, no courtesy call, just a wall and a gate with a padlock thicker than my wrist. And on a tiny 5x5 plot jutting out from the new development sat the gate itself, owned, according to a quiet online post, by Pinebrook Meadows HOA. They'd bought that sliver of land 2 weeks ago, just enough to control the only way in or out. They were clever, I'll give them that. They didn't touch my property directly, that would have been too obvious, too illegal. Instead, they fenced around it, using the edge of their new land to trap me inside. I couldn't even reach the gate without stepping onto their soil. They held the key, the access, the power. Or so they thought. Rage burned in my chest, but I've learned a thing or two from years of fighting fires: the hotter your head, the dumber your moves. So I didn't yell or post a rant online. I called my buddy Darnell, a real estate guy who owed me for helping rebuild his barn after a fire. Find out who owns the land under that gate, I told him. The exact plot. I'm buying it. He laughed, thinking I was joking. I wasn't. 3 days later, he called back, voice buzzing with disbelief. You're not gonna believe this, Jesse. The guy who sold that strip to the HOA. He owns another tiny piece right behind it, connecting to the main road. He was gonna sell it later, but I cut him off. How much? I wired the money that afternoon. That strip, the only land with physical access to the gate from the road, was mine. Better yet, it held a small maintenance shed where they'd stashed the gate's only key. I didn't tell a soul, not yet. I waited until the weekend, when Pinebrook Meadows was hosting a fancy HOA picnic on their clubhouse lawn. Families in khakis, kids with balloons, the whole step-forward scene. I rolled up in my beat-up Dodge truck, parked on my new land, and stepped out with a giant red "No Trespassing" sign under my arm. As I hammered it into the dirt, Donald Snipe stormed over, face redder than a sunburned tourist. What do you think you're doing? He snapped. Just putting up a sign, I said, calm as a summer breeze. On my land. His jaw dropped. Excuse me? Yep. I handed him the deed. Turns out, the land behind your fancy fence doesn't belong to you anymore. He froze, eyes darting over the paper. That's not possible. I pulled the gate key from my pocket, twirled it, and winked. Guess I'll let myself into my ranch whenever I feel like it. I stepped past him, leaving him stammering in his polo shirt. The picnic crowd stared, forks paused mid-bite. But that was just the beginning, because the next day, something wilder happened, something I never saw coming. I was sipping coffee on my porch, savoring the sunrise, when a cloud of dust rose from the HOA's road. A convoy of SUVs and golf carts barreled toward the gate. I figured it was just board members gawking at their precious fence, but they didn't stop. They drove straight onto my land, using the access strip I now owned, like they had a right to be there. My heart thudded as I stepped off the porch. One SUV parked inches from my steps, and out stepped Donald Snipe, flanked by 2 HOA goons and a woman in a crisp suit, Beatrice Langford, Pinebrook Meadows legal counsel, straight out of their glossy brochure. Donald didn't bother with pleasantries. He shoved a folder at me. We need to talk, Mr. Ray. I crossed my arms. Then talk. Beatrice stepped forward, lips pursed like she'd sucked a lemon. You're being served notice. You're in violation of HOA zoning policies and trespassing on community property. I raised an eyebrow. Trespassing? On my own land? Donald pointed at the fence. You're inside our enclosure. Beatrice pulled a map from the folder, tapping it smugly. Your ranch is now fully contained within Pinebrook Meadows' secured perimeter. As such, we've classified it as internal green space. I stared, dumbfounded. You turned my ranch into a park. Not officially, Donald said, too quickly. Yet. But we've submitted a reclassification petition to the county. Once approved, you'll follow all HOA guidelines. I nearly choked. They were trying to legally steal my land, to make it part of their HOA without my consent. My blood boiled, but I kept my voice steady. You're saying you can just take my ranch? Donald's smile was pure venom. It's for the good of the community. That was it. I walked to my porch, grabbed my phone, and dialed my cousin Travis, one of the best land use attorneys in Texas. While the HOA posse stood there, smirking, I handed Donald the phone. "Travis Ray, attorney at law," his voice boomed on speaker. "You have 3 seconds to get off my cousin's property before we hit you with criminal trespass, harassment, and civil liability." Donald paled. Beatrice snatched the phone, trying to argue, but Travis rattled off property codes and federal trespass laws like a machine gun. When he mentioned unlawful land enclosure, Beatrice's mouth snapped shut. They slunk back to their SUVs and drove off, but I knew this was far from over. I needed a breather, so the next day, I drove into town for supplies and stopped at the local diner for a burger and sweet tea. Halfway through my meal, Sheriff Daniels slid into the booth across from me, grinning. "You really ticked off some powerful people, Jesse." "You heard already?" I asked. "Man, it's all over town. HOA board came to the station this morning, claiming you're barricading their members and planning a sovereign ranch state." I laughed. "They serious?" "Deadly. But don't worry. They messed with the wrong Texan." I thought the storm had passed, but that night, while brushing my horses in the barn, I heard an odd noise, shovels scraping dirt. I crept outside, flashlight in hand, and followed the sound to the north side of the fence. 3 men in reflective vests were digging a trench, not on my land but on the strip I just bought. When I shouted, they froze. One dropped a walkie-talkie, and a voice crackled through, "keep digging. We need that secondary access by sunrise." They were building a secret entrance. I sprinted back, called Travis, and launched my drone. It buzzed into the sky, capturing the workers, their blueprints, everything. Just as I zoomed in on a map, a spotlight hit the drone, followed by the unmistakable click of a rifle bolt. A warning shot cracked the air, and my drone spiraled to the ground. I dove behind a hay bale, heart pounding. Who the hell were these people? I waited an hour in the dark before recovering the wreckage. The camera was toast, but the footage had already saved to my cloud. I sent it to Travis and Sheriff Daniels. But when I returned from the feed store that afternoon, my jaw hit the floor. My ranch's main road was blocked by a construction crew, paving fresh asphalt with bright yellow lines. A sign read, "coming soon, Pinebrook Meadows North Entrance. Private HOA Road. Permitted traffic only, they were building a road through my land, no notice, no permission, no shame." And in the distance, behind the fence, Beatrice watched, clipboard in hand, smiling like a cat with a canary. They thought they had me cornered, thought they could pave over my life and push me out. But they forgot one thing: I was Jesse Ray, the guy with the gate key, and they just handed me their future on a silver platter. What I did next would spark a fire they couldn't put out. By sunrise, I was ready. Boots laced, hat on, coffee in hand, I leaned on my porch railing, staring at their new road. It stretched to the gate like a black snake, thinking it could slither into my world. Pinebrook Meadows thought they were winning, but I was about to flip the board. I called Barry McDougal, a county zoning inspector I'd saved from a barn fire years ago. Honest as they come, with a thick Texas drawl and a BOLO tie that never quit. I laid out everything: the fence, the road, the shot at my drone. He whistled so loud it nearly blew my phone speaker. "They built a road without a permit. Through your land. I'll be there by noon." Barry showed up in a dusty pickup, chewing sunflower seeds and clutching a clipboard thicker than a phone book. He walked that road, inch by inch, snapping photos, scribbling notes, scratching his head. By the time he finished, his face was redder than a chili pepper. "They're gonna need more than fancy lawyers to wiggle out of this," he muttered. As we talked, a Pinebrook Meadows security patrol rolled up in a black golf cart, 2 guys in navy polos stepping out like they were Secret Service. Sunglasses, earpieces, one even had a fake badge. Barry squinted. What's this, HOA SWAT? The taller one puffed out his chest. You're on Pinebrook Meadows private development land. Vacate. Barry laughed so hard he doubled over. Son, I work for Travis County. You see this badge? He flashed it like a lightning bolt. You just told a government inspector to vacate private ranch land illegally paved by your little country club HOA. That shut them up. Barry ordered the road work stopped, warning of fines, legal action, maybe even jail time for unauthorized land use. The golf cart slunk away, but the quiet didn't last. That night, someone broke into my barn. I'd installed cameras after the fence stunt, and they caught it all, 2 masked men in hoodies, spraying flammable liquid on my hay bales, one holding a lighter. I called 911 before they could spark it. Deputies arrived, but the men were gone. Sheriff Daniels watched the footage and cursed. They wanted your barn to burn, make you look reckless, maybe get you evicted. Insurance mess, public outrage. I knew who sent them. The next morning, I printed every frame of the video and nailed it to the fence with bold letters, * try again. I don't Mississippi * the HOA didn't respond, but a white drone buzzed my porch for 30 minutes that afternoon. I took it out with a slingshot. Desperate for answers, I visited Ernest Walker, the old man who'd sold me the land by the gate. He lived in a shack outside town, sharp as a tack despite his years. Over iced tea on his porch, he grinned. You know, I still own a few surprise pieces of land around Pinebrook Meadows. Strips a few feet wide, right through their trails, their rec center driveway, even under their fancy fountain. My jaw dropped. You're saying you own land under their stuff? He winked. You bet. And I'm thinking of selling. 2 days later, I owned a 6-foot wide path cutting through the parking lot of Pinebrook Meadows HOA clubhouse. I didn't block it, yet. Just posted a sign, * private property. Cross at your own risk. Under surveillance, * that same day, Donald Snipe stormed to my gate, waving a court document. This is an injunction. You can't block access. You're endangering our community. I leaned on the fence, smiling. Who blocked who first, Donald? He sputtered, face red as a beet. This isn't over. I know, I said. That's what makes it fun. But the HOA wasn't playing games anymore. They filed an emergency motion to seize temporary control of my land, citing public nuisance and safety violations. The court date was set for the next week. I needed backup, so I called Senator Bobby Lane, an old friend I'd pulled from a burning car years ago. I told him everything. He listened, then said, I'll handle it, Jesse. But be ready, these people play dirty. You haven't seen the worst. He was right. The next morning, a bulldozer roared toward my porch. I ran out, barefoot, yelling, but the driver kept coming, muttering about paperwork. Sheriff Daniels arrived just in time, lights flashing, and stopped it. The permit was fake, stamped with a forged county seal. Felony-level fraud, Daniels said, impounding the machine. I felt hunted, my ranch no longer a haven but a battlefield. That night, I sat on my porch with a shotgun, Ranger at my feet, scanning the tree line. I wasn't sleeping anymore, I was planning. I had footage, the drone, the break-in, Barry's inspection, fake permits, land deeds. I sent it all to Allison Price, a local reporter known for exposing corruption. She came to the ranch with a cameraman, filming the fence, the road, the gate. I laid it all bare. Her segment aired that night, HOA Gone Rogue, Veteran Rancher Fights Land Grab Scandal. It went viral, racking up 3 million views in 24 hours. Protesters swarmed Pinebrook Meadows' office, signs reading Leave Jesse Alone and Freedom Isn't Fenced. I thought it was over, but 3 days before the hearing, a bank letter claimed my ranch was being foreclosed for missed payments. I owned my land outright, no mortgage. At the bank, they showed me fake bills from the HOA, $17,000 for fence shadow encroachment, unauthorized equine units, my horses, and sunlight reflection off my barn. Travis got a judge to freeze the HOA's actions, but 2 nights before court, my power line was cut. No lights, no cams. They wanted me weak. But I wasn't weak. I was done playing defense. Pinebrook Meadows had a secret. Their headquarters sat on land they didn't own, one of Ernest's forgotten strips. And I held the deed. At sunrise, the day before court, I nailed an eviction notice to their office door, * official notice, you are trespassing. Cease operations. Owner, Jesse Ray. * Allison's news crew caught it all, broadcasting live as Donald Snipe tore the notice down, screaming. The clip went viral, donations poured in, and strangers rallied behind me. The night before the hearing, I heard boots on gravel. I grabbed my shotgun and saw Beatrice Langford at the gate, hands raised. I'm done, she said, handing me a flash drive. Memos, emails, proof they planned the road, the foreclosure, the barn fire. She vanished into the dark. In court, Travis and I faced Donald, 3 lawyers, and a table of HOA brass. Judge Carol Ames listened as we presented everything, fake documents, the fence, the bulldozer, the fire attempt, the power cut, and Beatrice's flash drive. Travis dropped the bombshell, the HOA's headquarters sits on my client's land. The judge ruled in my favor, fining Pinebrook Meadows $500,000 and ordering an investigation. Hours later, the entire board, including Donald, was arrested. But I wasn't done. I owned the strip behind their paved road, and at sunrise, construction began. Not a fence, a rodeo arena. Freedom Arena, my stage, right where they thought they'd won. By noon, posts were up, kids cheered, and Allison broadcast live. Pinebrook Meadows residents gawked, one yelling, "You can't do this." I smiled. It's about to get louder, neighbor. That night, I hosted a barbecue, ranchers, veterans, kids with lassos. Sheriff Daniels played with his band, Barry danced, and I grilled burgers, Ranger at my feet. The broken fence in the background said it all. Pinebrook Meadows crumbled. Their board was gone, homes went up for sale, and their gate was never rebuilt, because I owned the land beneath it. Months later, the new HOA president, Emily, wrote, apologizing and inviting me to their events. Your arena brought joy, she said. I tucked the letter away. I didn't need to reply. I'd won. Not with courts or screams, but by building something stronger, something joyful, right in the heart of their greed. And in the end, the man they tried to fence in was the only one free.